Hello and welcome to News Central TV. I'm Darshan Usman. Here are some stories making rounds beyond the continent. We begin the news with the war in the Middle East, where hundreds of Hezbollah members have reportedly been injured after their handheld pages they use for communication exploded. According to Lebanon's state news agency, blasts occurred in the southern suburbs of Beirut and several other locations. Hezbollah's Al-Manar TV confirmed the incidents, saying many pages had detonated, though it did not specify the number of casualties. Videos and photos on social media show injured men lying on floors and others being rushed to hospitals. A Hezbollah official described the incident as the biggest security breach yet since the hostilities with Israel intensified 11 months ago in parallel with the Gaza conflict. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says nothing justifies the collective punishment of the Palestinian people following the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. This comes as Israel continues its retaliatory onslaught on the Gaza Strip following Hamas's October 7 attacks.
Well, it is unimaginable. The level of suffering in Gaza, the level of death and destruction have no parallel in everything I've witnessed since I am Secretary General. Obviously, we all condemn the terror attacks made by Hamas, as well as the taking of hostages. That is an absolute violation of international humanitarian law. But the truth is that nothing justifies the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. And that is what we are witnessing in a dramatic way in Gaza.
Meanwhile, UN member states is set to debate a push by the Palestinians to formally demand an end to the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories within 12 months. The text, which has faced fierce criticism from Israel, is based around an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice calling Israel's occupation since 1967 unlawful. The General Assembly requested that Israel is under an obligation to bring to an end its unlawful presence, in the occupied Palestinian territory as rapidly as possible. In response, Arab countries have called for a special session of the Assembly just days before dozens of heads of state and government descend on the UN headquarters this month to address the kickoff of this year's General Assembly session. Joining me on the news to discuss this is an international analyst, Bolu Michael B. Hello, Bolu. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Now, Bolu, tell us, what implications do you think a UN General Assembly adoption of the Palestinian resolution would have on the international diplomacy?
Well, I think it's going to create a significant shift, being that countries are now going to be pushed to, choose a side, either for the Israeli or the Palestinians. So it's going to kind of polarize the world in a bit. On the flip side, it has a potential of, inspiring or rejigging the advocacy of international organizations and civil society organizations to pressure Israel to give account of their actions, more like, pressuring them to be accountable for the things they've done. But definitely, this is definitely going to, polarize the world a bit.
All right, now speaking of pressure, to what extent will the International Court of Justice's advisory opinion influence member states' votes on the draft resolution?
You see, the ICJ, advisory opinion brings a legal twist to the whole thing, and it's plain and simple that the occupation of the Israeli forces in Palestine is illegal. That's what the says in a nutshell. And this automatically creates three categories of voters. The first is the undecided voters, who I think might broker the vote on that day. And the second category are those countries that kind of favor international law, that they will probably feel that, okay, this is what international law says, plain and simple. it violates international law. So if we vote against this, definitely we are contravening international law. The last category, the third category, are those who are countries that value their traditional alliances, geographical alliances like the United States of America. Countries like that will just will not really count the advisory opinion as much. So I think, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that the category that would determine the outcome of this vote will be the undecided countries.
All right, now, what about the primary arguments? If you could tell us, briefly, some of these primary arguments for and against the Palestinian resolution and how you think that, they will shape the General Assembly debate.
Okay, yeah. So Israel has been in occupations around 1967, and those in support will definitely have the argument that this war cannot last forever. It's plain and simple on paper that the law says Israeli occupation is illegal. That's what the supporters will say, and the critics might feel that the resolution is quite unnecessary. They may argue that what is it kind of undermines decades of peace process if an ordinary advisory opinion will lead to the end of the war. So why why do they have to waste their energy and resources and time, in the peace process? They could also argue that such resolution is targeting Israel and thereby not addressing the actions of the Palestinians, because it's not like the Palestinians have not killed Israelis. They've killed Israelis. They've held some hostage, and they've even killed, some were killed a couple of days ago. So they might feel like it's targeting Israel and the neglects or doesn't address the action of the Palestinian forces.
Well, Bolu, will this resolution affect Israel's relationship with other UN member states and also its global standing?
Definitely, it would. Israel may consider those who vote against them as enemy of progress or enemy of their state, and it's quite, it's expected. I think any country, their position may feel that way. Typical example is South Africa during the time of the apartheid. Late President Nelson Mandela said clearly that the predisposition and the posture of South Africa, international policy of South Africa towards countries will be based on their contribution or their actions towards their plight, to end apartheid. So Israel may toe the same line as well. The vote would be more than just a vote. It would be, they might say that, their foreign policy will be shaped by the sympathy people show, concerning countries show to their struggle. But they also risk international isolation, being the majority of the countries, if they tilt towards Palestine, then they would be the only ones standing. But countries like USA being on the side and being a powerful country may kind of mitigate the effects of isolation on Israel.
All right, speaking of powerful countries, that are in support of Israel, what responses can be expected from Israel and its allies if the resolution passes? And what impact do you think that these responses would have, on peace negotiations?
Okay, yeah, if it passes, then definitely Israel, they're going to reject it. They've always done that, they always do that, they're going to reject it, and countries like the United States will definitely back them up. And Israel is likely to opt for direct negotiation against having to toe a deadline. Deadline kind of puts them, it puts a level of pressure on them. So two things can happen. It's either Israel, they kind of halt the entire peace process and negotiation, or the war resolution kind of push them to have, to sit at the table and negotiate. So it can happen that it's push them to negotiate or halt the entire peace process.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bolu Michael B., for speaking to us on this.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let's head to the U.S., where an indictment unsealed on Tuesday shows music mogul Shando Colmes has been charged with 3 federal crimes: sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The unsealing followed the 54-year-old's arrest in Manhattan on Monday night by federal agents. His arrest comes after a tumultuous year during which his career was overshadowed by multiple lawsuits accusing him of physical and sexual abuse. The 14-page indictment alleges that Colmes transformed his business empire into a criminal enterprise engaging in sex trafficking, forced labor, and other illegal activities. It also claims that Colmes coerced and threatened women to fulfill his sexual desires and repeatedly assaulted them through acts of violence, including striking, punching, and kicking, beginning around 2009.
We knew this was coming. I mean, he moved to New York, as I think some of you guys know. We brought him to New York about 2 weeks ago because we knew this day was going to come, and it's here. He came here to surrender at a time agreeable to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and then they arrested him last night. I spent the evening with him. I was with him until about 1 o'clock. His spirits are good. He's confident. He is dealing with this head on, the way he's dealt with every challenge in his life. And he's not guilty. He's innocent of these charges. We know what the charges are going to be without seeing the indictment. It's going to be racketeering. It's going to be sex trafficking. It's going to be things along those lines. He's going to plead not guilty, obviously. He's going to fight this with all of his energy and all of his might and the full confidence of his lawyers. And I expect a long battle with a good result for Mr. Colmes. I'm going to fight like hell to get him released, and he should be released with all that he's done and coming here voluntarily.
The U.S. Secret Service says the man arrested on suspicion of seeking to assassinate Donald Trump in Florida had no clear line of sight on the former president and did not fire his weapon. Secret Service Acting Director Ronald Rowe made this known while referring to the suspect, Ryan Root, who has been charged with illegal firearms possession in this case.
Signing an executive order assigning the case involving the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump to the Office of Statewide Prosecutor.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has announced that the suspect in the attempted assassination of Donald Trump is believed to have violated state laws across multiple judicial circuits in Florida. Speaking during a press conference in West Palm Beach, DeSantis also said Florida would conduct its own investigation into the case. DeSantis added that Florida prosecutors will pursue the most serious state-level charges available, including attempted murder, in their investigation of Ryan Root. Ruth, who was charged with federal firearms offenses on Monday, will now face scrutiny under state law as well.
Today, I'm signing an executive order assigning the case involving the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump to the Office of Statewide Prosecutor under the supervision of Attorney General Ashley Moody. The suspect, Ryan Ralph, is believed to have committed state law violations across multiple judicial circuits in the state. Palm Beach Judicial Circuit, the Judicial Circuit including Martin County, as well as perhaps the Judicial Circuit represented by Broward County. Also, the state of Florida has jurisdiction over the most serious straightforward offense, which is attempted murder. I've directed state agencies to move expeditiously and to provide full transparency to the public. In my judgment, it's not in the best interest of our state or our nation to have the same federal agencies that are seeking to prosecute Donald Trump leading this investigation, especially when the most serious straightforward offense constitutes a violation of state law, but not federal law. In addition to holding the suspect accountable, the public deserves to know the truth about how this assassination came to be. And I've directed all state agencies to work expeditiously to be able to uncover the truth in addition to holding this suspect accountable.
In South America, following President Nicolas Maduro's re-election in July, contested by opposition groups and parts of the international community, protest demonstrations have left 27 people dead and 192 injured, while around 2,400 people have been arrested. The UN Independent International Fact-Finding Mission says the repression has reached unprecedented levels of violence and is orchestrated by the highest civilian and military levels of government, including President Maduro. The chairperson of the mission, Marta Valenius, told a press conference in presenting its latest report that some of the human rights violations they investigated are a continuation of acts that have previously been described by the mission as crimes against humanity.
We have observed a worsening of the human rights situation, especially following the presidential elections of 28th of July. The period covered by our report was marked by acts of repression in the period leading up to the presidential elections of 28th of July, the massive protests that took place after the National Electoral Council announced President Maduro's victory, and the violent response by security forces and armed civilian groups aligned with the government. All orchestrated by the highest civilian and military levels of the government, including President Maduro. Some of the human rights violations we have investigated during this period represent a continuation of the same course of conduct that we previously characterized as crimes against humanity. These violations were not the result.
Let's now head to Europe, where European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has announced the names of the future European commissioners. Among them, Italy's Raffaele Fitto, a member of Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's hard-right Brothers of Italy party, has been appointed as an executive vice president in the next European Commission. Fitto's appointment, revealed on Tuesday, has sparked controversy, drawing criticism from both leftist and centrist factions. At a press conference in Strasbourg, von der Leyen explained that Fitto would be responsible for the portfolio addressing cohesion policy, regional development, and urban affairs.
The first executive vice president will be Teresa Ribera, responsible for a clean, just, and competitive transition. She will also be responsible for the competition policy. So she has the competition portfolio. She will guide the work to ensure that Europe stays on track for its goals set out in the European Green Deal, and that we decarbonize and industrialize our economy at the same time. Next slide. Stéphane Séjourné will be the Executive Vice President for Prosperity and Industrial Strategy. He will also be responsible for the industry, SMEs, and the single market portfolio. He will guide the work to put in place the conditions for our companies to thrive, for investment and innovation, to economic stability and trade and economic security.
The chairman of the French National Assembly's Finance Committee, Eric Coquerel, and the MP and Budget Rapporteur, Charles de Croissant, say they're angry after returning empty-handed from the Prime Minister's office, where they had come to demand key documents from the draft budget for 2025. The European Commission on Tuesday said it was discussing setting a new deadline for France to submit a plan to reduce its public deficit, confirming Paris had requested a postponement. France, which was placed in a formal procedure for violating the bloc's budget rules in July, has been given until September 20 to explain how it intends to rectify the breach. However, the EU executive said the bloc's rules allow for the deadline to be extended by a reasonable period.
On est assez sidérés, Charles de Courson et moi-même, puisqu'on nous a refusé la consultation de ces documents dont je rappelle que c'est un droit constitutionnel qui est octroyé au président de la Commission des Finances et au rapporteur général du budget. Bien. On nous les a refusés alors même qu'il y a eu un précédent avec M. de Saint-Martin qui était venu les demander. Parce que considérer que nous sommes dans une situation extrêmement grave.
Let's also tell you that Dominic Picot, the 71-year-old man accused of drugging his wife and orchestrating her abuse by dozens of men over a span of 10 years, has admitted to all charges against him in his first testimony since the trial began on September 2. Speaking about the 50 co-defendants accused of raping his now ex-wife, Giselle Picot, admitted that he is a rapist like them. He claimed they were all aware of what was happening and cannot deny it. So far, only 15 of the 50 defendants have admitted to rape, with the others claiming they only participated in sexual acts. In her response, Giselle, visibly emotional, said it was difficult to hear his testimony.
Il n'y a pas de surprise. Il a expliqué quelque chose qui pour moi n'est pas une surprise, c'est ce qui ressort de la procédure et c'est sensiblement ce qu'il avait déjà déclaré au juge d'instruction pendant cette instruction avec les différents interrogatoires qu'il a subis. Oui. Oui, je pense qu'il y a tous ces traumatismes dont il a déjà parlé, sur lesquels on va revenir, c'est-à-dire un viol à l'hôpital de Châteauroux quand il a 9 ans, un viol collectif auquel il assiste et auquel on veut le faire participer quand il a 14 ans, et manifestement des scènes de violence sexuelle entre ses parents qu'il ne doit pas voir, parce qu'un gamin de 14 ans ne doit pas voir ce genre de choses et qui le perturbe énormément, qui l'attriste et qui surtout le...
And that's all on Beyond the Continent. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.